Hi, we're back. I know people have told me that during this little interim period that I should play music. Can't play music because this stuff ends up on YouTube and YouTube will take it down or demonetize it. So just imagine that the intro music for today is Olivia Rodrigo, Good For You. That is my adolescent jam, or she post-adolescent. Anyways, it's giving me 2001. I don't know if I'm an Olivia Rodrigo fan, but I'm a fan of those songs. I just like a good pop song. Y'all know I'm a pop girl. You know I'm a pop girl. Hi, let's go ahead and get started. So, I was supposed to come on here and do this earlier, but every time I would get ready to go live, somebody would send me a new link. Have you seen this? Have you seen his response? Have you seen this video? And there's just been a lot of developments. I still am Media Kim, and I still have a lot of thoughts about the Joe Budden situation, especially because over the weekend, Rory and Mal came out and gave their side of the story, and they sat down and talked for an hour, rebutting a lot of the claims that Joe made. And then Joe responded on Instagram Live. And then recently, today, the former co-host of See, Here's the Thing. You know what? Actually, let me just go into this. I have a lot of thoughts about Joe Budden trying to rebrand himself as being a champion of women because it's bullshit. And I also have some thoughts about women signing up to be a part of that charade. All right, so the title of this video is what it is. Joe Budden has, for a decade or more, amassed tens of accusations of harassment and mistreatment. Allegedly. Kimberly is not getting sued, allegedly, right? So many women have claimed that Joe Budden allegedly harassed them, abused them, mistreated them. A long time, okay? So now we have 2021 where women's empowerment, pro-women, post-Me Too era, where it is financially in the best interest of men who've been accused of doing horrible things, to put on the mantle of, I believe in women, I support women, I'm giving women this platform, okay? And so Joe Budden decides that he wants to make even more money. He wants to make even more money and build out the Joe Budden Network. Of course, we know what happened with the original co-host of the Joe Budden podcast, who I am not sure if this is true or not, but I was watching a video from a lawyer named Wine and Chill on YouTube. Y'all should watch her because she actually shouted me out, and I didn't even know she was going to shout me out when I clicked on that video. But she's a former entertainment lawyer, and she talked through some of the issues between Joe and Rory and Mal. And in that video, she said that Marissa, who was one of the original co-hosts of the Joe Budden podcast, also used to date Joe Budden and was his assistant. And it's like, y'all had no boundaries, but whatever. 2021. Joe Budden, or maybe this happened in 2020, Joe Budden decides that he wants to be a champion of women, so he creates a couple of podcasts. The first one is See, Here's the Thing with Olivia Dope and Mandy from Horrible Decisions and Bridget Kelly. And it's not interesting. And then, it's not. And then no shade. I mean, I can't say that and say no shade, but it is what it is. Okay. Okay. Here's what I'll say. It wasn't compelling to me. It wasn't my taste. That's what I'll say. That's less shady. And then he also has teamed up with Karen Civil and Ming Lee, who have a podcast. Now that's something I will for real say is not interesting. Right? Famous people, highly visible people with lots of money does not mean compelling broadcaster. Does not mean that I want to sit and listen to you talk for an hour and a half. It's so interesting because you think that somebody like Joe Budden would understand that. So anyways, where am I? So Joe Budden, with all of these accusations, with women that have come up over the years, decides he's going to rebrand himself and build out the business by using women to grow the platform and draw in audiences. One, because I'm sure because he has this horrible reputation, because we're in this Me Too era, but also because women, and Black women in particular, are huge consumers of media. We have enormous spending power. Black women drive conversations with regard to digital media. And so it is in your best financial interest to invest in giving Black women, compelling Black women, platforms. But it's still the same man. It's still the same man. So y'all are signing up to participate in this whitewashing of this man's legacy, but he ain't changed. And I'm not saying this to victim blame at all. I am not, because we all think that, as I said in the last video, we all think that narcissists are not going to turn that shit on us. We all think that we're going to be immune. That's not what happened. So Olivia today got on her Instagram Live, and she recounted the sexual harassment that she experienced at the hand of Joe Budden. And to her credit, she says that when she signed up to be a part of the Joe Budden Network, she did not know about all of the claims of abuse and harassment. I have questions about that. But this is not the time to get into that. And I did wonder, right, why she suddenly departed. I did. And so she sat down this morning for 26 minutes and outlined how during a recording of the podcast where Joe sat in, that he was incredibly inappropriate with her. Yeah. Also, I mean, just on a superficial level, Olivia is a beautiful ass lady. And the See Here's the Thing, or See Now, or whatever the podcast is called, I don't care. It definitely misses something by having two biracial women on there talking about Black shit. It definitely does. It don't look great. All right, so what we're actually going to do is there's a couple of parts of her video that I just thought it would be useful to play, and let's go ahead and do that.
At 14 minutes 34 seconds, there's an edit in the recording because Joe says him and I should speak more because, quote, he's been wanting to fuck me since we've met. Everyone in the studio, including production staff, laughed uncomfortably while one of my co-hosts confirmed that to be true. I am mortified by this revelation, not only because it's revealed while we are amongst the presence of all of the production staff, but it's also being done while we are also recording audio as well as visual. That scene was cut out, and it jumps to Joe repeating, we should speak more because we have the least dialogue. At 19 minutes and 26 seconds, another edit happens because Joe makes another suggestion to having sex with me. This is shown... Joseph makes another suggestion to have sex with me. That scene is edited out, and what is shown in right after that is me closing my eyes, saying no, and then he says never mind.
So we're just gonna, that's over a minute of that. The whole video is 26 minutes long. It's on her Instagram, IGTV panel of her Instagram. Of course I believe her. It happened. Of course we know it happened. I'm sure she's not the only person around there that it's happened to, of course. I also thought it was interesting that she said in that video that one of the co-hosts, I don't think it was Mandy, I think it was the other one, that one of the co-hosts was going behind their back and snitching on what they the women were talking about in the group chat and going back to Joe with it so that she could be teacher's pet. Ladies, we've got to get some self-respect, ladies. We've got to do better, ladies. All right. I'm going to move on to the end. Let's go to the end of this video. Or maybe it's not the end. A little bit further.
At 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 38 seconds after I sit down after the on-air hug, I grab the microphone and I say, "This is uncomfortable." That's pretty much the end of the episode that was recorded. After the
okay, so she's detailing what happens during the episode. She's visibly upset, visibly uncomfortable. They ask her, is everything cool? Do you want this to be taken out? First of all, have y'all... Obviously, nobody here has worked at a real job or real workplace. There's no HR at the Joe Budden Network. There's no training at the Joe Budden Network. But it's really 101 that if you are asking somebody if something made them uncomfortable, you don't do it in front of the boss. Are y'all, like, it's like really extremely crazy. And I do wonder, you know, what kind of conversations are going to come out of this, right? Because you cannot be a female empowerment podcast talking about women's issues, standing up for women, and then have this shit come out and not say anything when you know who's signing the checks. When you get in bed with dogs, don't be surprised when you what? When you lay in bed with dogs, don't be surprised when you what? Get fleas. Anyways, I thought that was really, I wanted to start with that, even though I was initially going to come on here and talk about Rory and Mal's follow-up, because I do think that Olivia's accusations are the most important part of this story at this point. Women deserve to be safe in the workplace, especially dark-skinned Black women. They deserve to be believed. Absolutely. So anyways, I am now fully convinced that Joe Budden is just like a legit, like, bad person all around. To women, to his friends, just truly an immoral character. Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about Rory and Mal. They recorded something somewhere. It's been bootlegged so many times, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know where I watched it, on what platform it was originally on, but I did sit down and watch the whole hour and 9 minutes. Again, I do encourage you, if you want an actual lawyer's opinion, to watch Wine and Chill. I will actually link it in the Substack and link it on YouTube because she's great and I like her and we love a knowledgeable Black woman. All right. So during that sit down, it's Mal and Rory. Rory does most of the talking as per usual. Mal did get a little spicy. You know, he had some Harlem spice, but Rory really laid out a lot of the ways that Joe went wrong. And so one of the main things that Rory underscores is that whenever there is talk of business, whenever there's a question, like, can I get some more information? What's going on here? Joe gets super, super defensive and he flips out. A huge red flag. So Rory talks about a conversation that he had during lunch with Elliott Wilson. And Elliott Wilson is the rap nigga. Like, y'all know, just Google him, right? I call him Danielle Smith's husband because I don't care about hip hop like that. And he works at Tidal. And Elliott Wilson is talking to Rory about potentially bringing the Joe Budden podcast over there, and here's what the money might look like. And Rory says he goes to Joe, and Joe completely flips out on him. Now, I will say, When I first watched the video, I was on Rory's side. So why are you flipping out? Like, whatever, because Rory said, Elliot told me this, and then Joe talked, and then Joe flipped out, and then Joe went and talked to them, and Joe got the exact same number. But then I heard Joe talk about it because I'm fair. I'm a fair person. I heard Joe talk about it, and I actually understood. After hearing Joe talk about it, I'm on Joe's side here. He said Tidal offered them $40,000 a month, which I know seems like a lot. I know to like everyday regular people seems like a lot of money. It's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money. But also, Rory is not in the position to talk about business. If you're not in the position to sign contracts, I actually don't think you're in a position to discuss business dealings. And Joe said that he only took the conversation about money with Tidal seriously because he literally had a conversation with Jay-Z. I understand that. Cause you can't, don't be talking about my business shit. Don't be out here talking about my business. Okay, so I actually was on his side there. But then they talked more about how when they would ask for a contract, right? Rory said, all right, we're getting real offers with real money, $40,000. Honestly, in media world, not a huge amount of money, but it's something, right? So they can no longer do this podcast with Joe and Rory and Mal off the strength. We now need to have things set in stone. We need contracts, we need lawyers, so that when real money comes, we don't have to do all of the arguing, right? Let's iron out the terms now, and it'll be smooth sailing moving forward. That's great. I'm like, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. I think the primary criticism of Rory and Mal is y'all were just not smart about the business. But when they sat down and worked through and talked through it, it's like, oh, you were trying to, but every time you were trying to be proactive about getting the business affairs in order, Joe freaked out on you. I forgot to say that this is for Harriet merch. Black women aren't here to save you. I accidentally put this on, to be honest. I didn't even realize that I had this on when I was talking about how Joe Budden is trying to build up the Joe Budden Network in his reputation by hiring black women. That's an accident. It was an accident. That's God. That's whatever deity you believe in. It's kismet. Anyways, black women aren't here to save you merch. Shopforharriet.com. I'll link that too. Anyways, let's go back to it. So Rory says, oh, let's actually iron out the terms of this. Okay, because this is a real thing. This is a real business. Joe freaks out. Red flag. Red flag. Huge red flag. In fact, right, it's actually in everybody's best interest, particularly if you're dealing with people you actually care about. It's in everybody's best interest to say, oh, we don't want to be arguing about this. Oh, I don't want to be arguing about it. So let's take some time to work through point by point. There's a problem if somebody is deterring you from getting things in writing. That ain't right. And I do believe both Rory and Mal when they say that Joe Budden didn't like the contract shit. 100% I believe that. All right. So Joe does own the Joe Budden podcast. Rory and Mal outline in that hour-long conversation that they are profit participants, okay? So they're not employees. I think I got that wrong on the last live. I was misinformed. They are profit participants, meaning that they get money on the back end. They get a percentage of whatever the podcast makes. So that means they are absolutely entitled to accounting. Okay, so Rory talked about how in the contract, the lawyers ironed out that in order to understand exactly how much money they would be entitled to, they have to go through a whole accounting process. It's supposed to happen quarterly, but it's not happening quarterly. And then it's not happening twice a year. That's in the contract. How are you going to give people points on the back end and not give them access to a full and detailed accounting of how much money is coming in and how much money is going out? It's very simple. So there should be no dispute. There should be, sorry, a little juicy. I have a juicy mouth. There should be no dispute whatsoever about that. And what Rory and Mal underscore is, they're supposed to get the accounting quarterly. It doesn't happen quarterly. But they also have to pay for it. It's not even like Joe is assuming the financial burden of even having to pay for accounting. If you ever had to pay for an audit, which I had because I've had some IRS issues. If you ever had to pay for an audit or accounting, you know that shit is not cheap. It's a lot of money. It's an investment. So they do have skin in the game. All right? So not only is it in the contracts, but they're also paying for it. And then Mal talks about how he kind of became suspicious of the accounting when they got something back and there was a huge mistake, a $400,000 mistake. Of course you're going to have questions. So this is the thing, right? Something I appreciate how methodically, because I'm not a linear thinker, but I do appreciate notes. How methodically Rory and Mal worked through this point by point, because what they were saying adds up a lot more than what Joe says. You know, Joe just get to yelling and screaming and this and that. And just like Rory said, Joe is a person who sounds smart to dumb people. He is a person, because he says things forcefully, people will just go with whatever he says. But when people are really meticulously breaking it down, it makes perfect sense. All right, so then Mal talks about not only is Joe acting real shady when people are asking questions, being real secretive, Mal notices this huge mistake. The accounting is bad, and then he has an interaction with Joe, and when Mal is like, so how are we supposed to know like what the money is? And Joe says to him, well, you got a calculator, right? What? First of all, are these not your friends? Are these not your, first of all, okay, let's take the business out of it. Let's just take the business out of this. Are these not your friends? Who maneuvers like that when you're talking to people? And Mal and Joe have known each other for 20 years. When you're talking to people that you care about, who does that? Look, I'm non-violent because I'm 5 feet tall and I can't fight. But that's when y'all gotta fight. That's crazy to me. Joe is absolutely puff daddying them, allegedly. Joe is puff daddying them, allegedly. I 100% believe that. There's no reason for that level of secrecy. Okay, so I went back and watched Joe on Instagram Live rebutting Rory and Mal's rebuttal. Joe says they were not actually profit participants, which is something very specific. He says they make money off of his net podcast profits. I actually do want to talk to, maybe I'll bring on like an entertainment lawyer so that we can like break down some of these terms, because I'm interested in the terms as somebody who runs a little media business. But basically, they got a percentage of all of the net profits the podcast make. Okay, so that means you still need to give them accounting. I don't see what that changes. I don't see it at all. And Joe is saying that based on what the actual percentages are and what the actual income was, that he was way overpaying them. And again, I say, well, wouldn't all of this be cleared up if there was clear, meticulous, rigorous accounting? Like, why are we having there would be no need for this back and forth and Joe saying, well, that's not true, and them saying, well, this is true, if there were documents? I don't. So that's why I'm more inclined to believe Rory and Mal. Because it ain't adding up. I mean, the math is literally not mathing. All right. And then Joe... So Rory and Mal also talked about how they were making all of this money because the Joe Budden podcast is huge. And they weren't getting clear accounting that they were supposed to get. But then they didn't even get to the we need accounting stuff until they signed the Spotify deal, right before they signed the Spotify deal, and that was in August of 2018. So this is another thing where I have to really question Rory and Mal. So how many episodes, you're doing 200 something episodes of this podcast, I assume, at that point, and y'all don't have no contract. And y'all don't finally get a contract until there's this huge multinational corporation that comes in and says they want to write a big check. And then you'll finally get something in writing. That seems like a huge oversight. That seems like an enormous oversight to me. But then I also have some questions because am I mistaken, or did Rory and Mal also say that they were not privy to all of the details of the Spotify deal? So you sit down right before the Spotify deal, you have your lawyers iron out this contract, who gets what percentages, what goes where, and you're getting net profits, a percentage of net profits, but then you also have no ideas about the details of the deal? That seems not right. I mean, like, I believe that that's what happened, but that seems not right. Okay. So there's that, right? So they finally ironed it out, and then they also talked about, the drama of going back and forth. And this is so interesting, right? That apparently Joe was getting upset about what lawyers are asking for. And it's like, but why though? The whole point, especially if you're working with friends and family, the whole point of saying, let the lawyers do it is, I'm out of it. I'm in it and I ain't in it, okay? Any animosity is supposed to remain between the lawyers because that's their job. So why would you ever come to me and get mad about what my lawyer is asking? Tell the lawyers to, especially if it's basic shit. That's what you pay lawyers for, so that we can be good, so that our interpersonal relationship can remain intact. Don't talk to me about what no lawyers are doing. That's just how I would feel about it. That's just how I would feel about it. All right. So there's this, and this, what's so funny, and so many people have brought this up, that Joe and Rory and Mal love to sit and pontificate about other people's deals, about how other people are getting jerked and screwed, and how other people need to be more conscientious about the deals that they're making, and how these young artists, they have no reason to get screwed. They have no reason to get screwed because we have so many blueprints for what the business needs to look like. But behind the scenes, their business was fucked up. Behind the scenes, Joe knew he was puff daddying them, allegedly. He knew what he was doing, allegedly, while they're talking all that shit. That's funny to me. All right, so then the Spotify deal collapses because Joe ends, and they're talking about how they're so mistreated by Spotify, and Spotify wanted to give them Rolexes. Spotify didn't want to give them money. Spotify just wanted to give them old, busted, not bust down, old, busted, because now I know what a bust down Rolex is, because I'm cool, Rolexes, and they're mad. So they leave Spotify. And I actually watched that episode because, again, Business Kimberly, that's why she's wearing glasses today. Business Kimberly is really interested in what people are doing business-wise. So I did watch that episode where they talked about leaving Spotify and the reasons behind it and how they were getting jerked and all that, right? And so they make the decision that they are going to go independent. And Rory underscores that he has money. He's made all of this money from the podcast. He's not worried about going independent. It doesn't matter to them. He also rebutted Joe when Joe accused Rory of being overly interested in the YouTube money, the AdSense money. And Rory's like, no, I didn't care about that. Now, I would be okay if he did care about it, but Rory said no. Like, that wasn't a big deal to me. Fine. So then they decide they're going independent, and they're independent for a while, and they get a big Cash App deal, and that money gets split. There's still no accounting, though. This is basic shit, right? What is the point of hiring lawyers? Because I know them lawyers ain't cheap. What is the point of going through contract negotiations? What is the point of ironing out all of these terms if you're not going to adhere to the terms? Really basic shit. You get a big deal that's going to pay your co-hosts who are entitled to accounting contractually. Why would you not provide that? It sounds shady as fuck. And then Mal is saying, because hindsight is 2020, Mal is talking about how he has all of these regrets and certain things weren't adding up for him, like how they would go on tour and they had this really, really successful tour all around the country pre-COVID. And for every single show, no matter how many seats were sold, he was getting the same amount of money. And that was peculiar to him. Like, it didn't matter whether they sold 1,500 seats or 2,500 seats or 2,000 seats. He was always getting the same amount of money. And that wasn't adding up for him. Now, Business Kim, I can actually think of why that might be, right? Because actually, it could be that when you go to a bigger venue, there are more expenses. But you know how you put people's mind at ease about that? Accounting! So anyways, okay, they go independent. Then Joe signs with Patreon. And they are saying that they have no idea about the signing with Patreon. They don't know how much money Patreon is bringing in a month. They don't know if it's going to just be a Joe Budden podcast Patreon. It ends up being a Joe Budden Network Patreon. Joe has brokered this deal completely by himself. Okay, so then they are going to get a payout every month from Patreon. It's going to be a whole lot of money. Again, we need paperwork. We need to see receipts. Show me the receipts. It's so fucking basic to me. That's why I'm so confused by this. They're not getting anything, right? We're still doing it purely off the strength, and Joe is yelling when questions are asked, and he's upset. And I think this was an interesting part where Rory and Mal say, they've gotten to this point, they're independent, they are hearing from the crew of the podcast that they're overworked, that they're not getting enough compensation, people look tired. So Rory and Mal decide that they're going to take 1 month of their earnings from the Patreon payout and redistribute it to the people lower on the totem pole. Amazing. Okay, comrades. Okay, mutual aid. Right? Like, I actually was really impressed by that. Who would do that? Even if you have enough money. I was actually really impressed by that. That they said, okay, we're just not going to just give it to the rest of the people. And Rory says, he talks to Ian, who is Joe's manager, about that. And then Joe calls him screaming. Why? And I watched Joe on Instagram talking about why he was so upset about that. He was like, it's not their job. Okay, well then it's your job. And if you were abdicating your responsibility to take care of the people in the support roles, and these two people who are making a whole bunch of money and who are also highly visible are volunteering to bridge the gap, why are you mad about that? Now that just feels like true blue, 100% unadulterated narcissism. Because ain't no reason to be mad about that. It's their money. Weird. It's just about control. So anyways, that looks extremely, extremely bad. And then, Mal then decides to go off because, as I mentioned in the last video, Joe was he was just saying wild things about both of them. Saying, Mal lived with me. And it's like, but we already know, it's very well documented that Joe was broke, right? The whole like Mal lived with me thing like feels very intentionally malicious. And so Mal is going off because, he's a Harlem nigga, as he likes to say, and he's going off about this and the lies, and he had more money than Joe, and I believe him. And he also talks about how he's had conversations with other people who have done business with Joe, like Royce da 5-0, or like somebody in Slaughterhouse. Maybe it wasn't Royce da 5'9", but somebody in Slaughterhouse accused Joe of being shady with the business. So basically, Joe has a reputation of being shady. I absolutely do believe that Joe lied on Mal. I will say, if y'all watched the Rory and Mal interview, I cringed every single time Mal said defamate. He said, you're not just gonna defamate my character. And he said it over and over and over again. And I was in the car with my boyfriend and we were listening and I was like, defame, defame, defame. But that's not the point. That's not the point. That's not the point. I'm just saying, I feel like Rory could have been like, defame. And then Joe on his Instagram, when responding to this, somebody said, well, you were unnecessarily ugly to them. You were so mean and nasty. And Joe was like, yeah, I had a bad day. I was having a tough day. What? That's the explanation? You did all that. You went off on these people who you call friends for 2 hours. Somebody says you didn't need to do it like that. That was so unnecessary. And he goes, I had a bad day. Oh no. Y'all gotta stab this man. Y'all gotta burn down his house because that's not okay. I don't support violence. I don't support violence, but I'm just saying that if you had the urge to stab him, I would not. Rory and Mal also said that Joe wanted to put them on salary because of how much money they were making. Totally believe that. Totally believe that. And on the last video, somebody commented, I believe Joe when he says Rory and Mal wanted to be on salary. And I commented, nobody who knows anything about ownership and IP would believe that. It's nonsensical. It does not make sense that Rory and Mal would ever say in a million years that they would rather take a salary than get a percentage of the profits. It does not make sense. It would never happen. So if Joe is alleging that they wanted to be on salary, it's bullshit. Sorry, no. All right. He just didn't want to give them the percentage. And that makes perfect sense to me. Mal's also right. When they were talking about the YouTube stuff and how we're splitting revenue and stuff and all that, and Joe didn't want to give them any YouTube revenue or whatever. Mal made a really good point about the fact that the explosion of the growth of the Joe Budden YouTube channel is not because people want to play Pump It Up on repeat. It's not because people want to go back and watch his old vlogs or whatever from when he was allegedly abusing Tahiri from 2007, allegedly. I don't have lawyer money like that. I got a little bit, but I don't have Joe Budden money. Allegedly, they were subscribing to watch the Joe Budden podcast. Absolutely. I'm sure if you did an audit and accounting, you can really easily see when people are subscribing to your YouTube channel, why they're doing it, on which videos, on which date. You would absolutely see the connection. So to deny that is crazy. That's wild. It's very obviously true. So it seems like, look, if I were them, I would be headed to court. Because something that I thought of when I was watching Rory and Mal is, okay, so y'all got 400 and something episodes of this podcast that are still up on the streaming networks, the audio streaming networks. I don't know how many episodes of the podcast that are still up on YouTube. I hope, but I doubt, that there's something in the contract about who gets what if you depart. It don't seem like there is. So that huge back catalog, we know, people. We know that the catalog is where the money is. Being able to license that and repurpose that and insert ads into that, that's money in perpetuity. What perpetuity mean? Forever. I certainly hope that there was some negotiation about who gets what money if they chose to depart. Because if there was nothing there, y'all need to go to court, okay? Oh, it is open. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Y'all need to go to court. Okay, if Mal wants to go to court, I don't know if Mal wants to go to court. He's still on the hood mentality mess. Look, he said, you know, I'm not taking my niggas to court. I don't believe in that. I mean, I do. I'm gonna say in this case, let the white man lead. Let the white man lead. Because y'all need to go to court to get the coins. Obviously, not a lawyer, just a creative person who talks to lawyers and accountants multiple times a month. Just me. Y'all need to go to court. And obviously, Ice and Ish, the new people on the podcast, are just going to get a salary. And Rory said that Joe told him that he could get both Ice and Ish for half of what a Rory makes. So now Joe gets what he wants. He gets to keep way more money. Doesn't have to deal with these people he doesn't like anymore. There's nobody to question him. Ice and Ish are basically like indebted to him for putting them on. He gets to maintain the power position. So yeah, that's that. Let's go to some of these questions. Oh. What is Olivia's Insta? Her name is Olivia Dope. So if you, or maybe it's Olivia is Dope is her Insta. Let me look. Oh, it's just Olivia Dope on Instagram. Do you think he is a big enough of a personality to just bring on 2 new people? I think it will not be the same, but I think that there are enough people who are just Joe fans and who are just general fans of the banter that they'll be fine. I do. I think he'll be fine. I still think it's crazy, the idea that you're blocking them from starting their own stuff. It's crazy because Joe is blocking because of as we assume, well, we meaning the lawyer that I watched on YouTube this morning, assumes that there's a non-compete clause in Rory and Mal's contract, and that is what would bar them from immediately starting their own podcast. Wouldn't Rory and Mal still get paid for the episodes that Ice and Ish are on also? Depends on what their contract is, but I assume that is not in the contract. Again, I don't know. I don't know why this little thingy won't clasp, but I assume that if they were going to get paid for those episodes, that would be explicitly stated. I doubt it. I mean, if y'all can't even get, an accounting audit, then, y'all not getting no future royalties from the Joe Budden podcast. Did you miss the live where he practically saying? Did you miss in the live where he was practically saying he went broke overpaying them? He did say, so Joe did say that he, after the Spotify deal was done, that he was over leveraged, that he almost went broke overpaying them because he wanted to give them more than what they would have gotten from their contract. You know what I'm gonna say? Do you know how you allay people's fears, people's concerns about how much they should be getting paid? Accounting. You say, hey, I'm going to be transparent with y'all. Y'all my niggas. I trust y'all. I'm in a bad space right now. So let me, in order to maintain trust here, so this is what stand-up people do. This is what people with integrity do. In order to maintain trust here, I'm going to lay it all out. Here's what you should be getting. Here's what I'm giving you. Here's what the discrepancy is. Here's what I got from Spotify. They didn't know what was in the Spotify deal. That shit is crazy to me. That shit is crazy to me. It is an abject lack of integrity, especially dealing with friends. All right, next one. What role do you think toxic masculinity played in this? I mean, they're all toxic, you know. That's the thing, right? We have to be honest with you. They're all toxic because something that, to go back to Olivia and the accusations of harassment that I 100% believe are true, is she played a clip where Joe was talking about how he treats women and, you know, the new women on the podcast network, and Joe and Rory and Mal were all just laughing about Joe, just saying these things that are just horrible and toxic and potentially abusive. Can we say hostile work environment? Laughing, having a grand old time because you think you're safe from it. And that's why y'all gonna have to go to court, okay? All right, another question. Okay, what do you think about Parks' stance on this? Him taking Joe's side? Well, am I surprised that people take the side of the person who signs their check? No. I don't know what's wrong with this earring. I'm gonna just take it off. Am I surprised when somebody sides with the person who signs their check? No, I'm not. Okay, first of all, I appreciate y'all for the badges. Shout out to AK Black, Dropped Gems, Lynn Doyes. Appreciate y'all. Parks wasn't even always a part of the pod. Yeah, I definitely remember the episodes where Parks didn't speak. They like one day decided to give him a microphone and now he's like putting all of his input in. All right, you guys, we're gonna wrap that up. Black Women Aren't Here to Save You merch, shopforharriet.com. Oh, you know what else I forgot to talk about? How on the paid tier of the Substack and the member version of the Kimberly Nicole Foster channel, I have talked about how I cleaned up my hoarded apartment. I've had 2 apartments for over a year because one of them I was basically a hoarder, and I finally cleaned that out, and I talked about that one. And then I also talked about how I am navigating very tentatively the gender role shit in my relationship to a heterosexual man. And it's been a journey. And we had another one of those conversations last night. That was a journey. It's a journey. We're all learning here, okay? So I talked about that stuff. And if you want to watch those conversations, they're now up. That is it. Also, I cannot find my Divest from Men water bottle. ever since the housekeeper came. And I'm like, did he take it? I don't know where it is. Do you suspect Parks has a bigger cut? No, I don't. Okay. How do you think it affects a woman's brand when she tethers herself to such a problematic man like Joe? I mean, you have no credibility. I mean, look. The thing about our current media environment is you can basically do whatever you want and still make money and maintain an audience because media is so siloed. So that's why I frankly am not worried ever about getting canceled. I'm not worried about saying things that are offensive. You know, I'm not worried about the hoteps not fucking with me, or, you know, a certain side of YouTube not fucking with me, because I know that I have a certain silo, okay, of people who get it and who are gonna show up because they get it. I'm not worried about that. But that also means it's very difficult to hold people accountable, even though you can't really hold people accountable. But it's very difficult to impose consequences on people when they are problematic, like a Joe Budden, because there are so many people who don't give a fuck and will continue to give him their money, right? I looked at the Patreon on that episode where Joe was going off. It had like 4,000 something likes or something. Let me look at Joe Budden's Patreon right now. Joe Budden. Okay. Now, Joe on his Patreon does not divulge how many patrons he has, but on the episode 437, You Want It to Be One Way, on Patreon there are 3,228 likes. Okay, so that's just the number of people who liked it. I would say Joe Budden probably has 10 to 15,000 patrons. I mean, and that's conservative. I mean, I'm saying conservatively he has between 10 to 15,000. I mean, that's a low ball. Low. I mean, he could easily have 20 to 30,000 people paying him every month. So if you have 20,000 people paying you on average, let's say $10 every month, you don't give a fuck. There's no consequences. You cannot impose consequences. Now, again, it's good when it's good, but it's real bad when it's real bad. But this question was about women, okay? Okay, I think that it definitely hurts your credibility with certain people, and certain people don't give a fuck. And that's just the reality of how media works in 2021. So there are certain people I will never take seriously because they fuck with Charlemagne and they fuck with Joe Budden and they be quoting Dr. Umar. Like, never. I will never take you seriously. I will never fucking take you seriously. But who the fuck am I? It doesn't affect their bottom line. So yeah, there are rooms that you can no longer enter, but I'm sure that if you're still getting to the bag, you don't give a fuck if there are rooms you can no longer enter by being attached to an abusive man. All right. All right, let's move on. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Join the YouTube memberships. Join the Substack memberships. That's all I got, you guys. Bye.